The millionaire saw his maid's calmness while a robbery was taking place. What happened next shocked everyone. The first gunshot shattered the party. Bang! The chandelier rattled violently, sending dust and tiny shards raining down. Screams erupted. Children cried in terror. Guests in designer suits dove to the floor, covering their heads with trembling hands. Masked men burst into the hall, their boots pounding against the polished marble floor. Guns gleamed in their fists, their voices slicing through the chaos. "Down! Everybody down!" one of them roared. "On your knees! Hands up where I can see them!" another barked. One robber stepped forward, his pistol aimed directly at the millionaire. The proud man's face went pale, his body stiff with fear. He raised his trembling hands and stammered, "Please, take whatever you want." "Shut up," the robber snarled, pressing the barrel inches from his forehead. "We'll take it all, rich boy. Keep your mouth shut, or you'll be the first to bleed." The millionaire's wife screamed, wrapping her arms around their children. "Please, please don't hurt them." "Quiet, lady," another robber snapped, swinging his weapon toward her. "One more sound and I'll put a bullet in the floor right next to you." The children's sobs filled the room. Fear soaked the air like poison. Guests trembled, fumbling to strip off their jewelry as the robbers demanded watches, rings, wallets, and phones. Chaos ruled the hall. But then, in the middle of the storm, something strange happened. The maid, Laura, stepped forward. Her hands were raised, but her face showed no fear. Her voice did not tremble. Her eyes were locked on the men with guns, calm, steady, unbroken. And in that instant, the night began to change. The hall was thick with terror. Every scream, every sob echoed against the high ceilings. Expensive watches, diamond earrings, and glittering necklaces clattered into the sack the robbers carried. One man tried to hide his wallet, but a gun slammed across his cheek and sent him sprawling. "Faster," one robber barked. "Move it or you'll regret it." The millionaire's hands shook as he struggled to pull off his gold watch. Sweat rolled down his temple. I'm trying. Please don't." "Quiet!" The cold barrel pressed harder against his skin. His knees nearly buckled. The wife's sobs grew louder as she clung to her children. "Please don't hurt them. I beg you." A gun swung toward her, finger tightening on the trigger. "Shut your mouth or I'll shut it for you." The children screamed, their cries filling every corner of the hall. Guests covered their faces, too afraid to even look up. And then, a different voice cut through the madness. "You're shouting because you're afraid," Laura said. Every head turned. She stood tall, palms raised, her eyes fixed on the men with guns. Her voice was calm, steady, almost too calm. The leader of the robbers snapped his head toward her, storming forward. His gun rose, the black barrel aimed squarely at her forehead. "What did you just say?" "You're afraid," she repeated. "Your finger twitches every time you scream. Afraid men make mistakes. Mistakes get people killed. Keep your hands steady. Keep your voice down. You don't want to fire." The room froze. The millionaire stared at her in disbelief. His heart pounded in his chest. Who was this woman? She wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging for her life. The leader's hand trembled, his mask hiding his face, but not his hesitation. "Say that again," he hissed, pressing the gun harder against her skin. Laura's voice didn't waver. "You don't want to fire." The millionaire's wife whimpered, pulling her children closer. "Please stop. Please don't make him angry." But the maid didn't back down. Her gaze stayed locked on the man holding the gun. The leader snarled, swinging his weapon back toward the millionaire. "You! Shut your mouth before I blow it off!" The children wailed again, their cries piercing the silence. One of the robbers barked, "Boss, make them quiet!" The wife sobbed, her voice broken. I can't." "Enough." Laura's voice boomed like a command, sharp and cutting. The room fell silent. Even the children hushed at the weight of her tone. She took one slow step forward, eyes sweeping over the masked men. "You came here for money, not blood. If you start firing, the police will hunt you until your faces are plastered everywhere. If you stay calm, you walk out with what you want, and everyone lives." Her words struck like a stone dropped in water, rippling through the room. The guests stared at her. The robber shifted uneasily. The leader's chest rose and fell in heavy bursts. "Boss, she's stalling," one of them muttered nervously. "Shut up," the leader snapped, though his voice cracked. Laura didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked, her tone sharp and unyielding. "They already fear you. You don't need to scream. You don't need to point guns at children. They'll remember you either way, but don't make them remember you as killers." The millionaire swallowed hard, his chest tight. This was the same woman who mopped his floors, who set his table, who spoke so little he sometimes forgot she was there. Yet now she was standing against armed men, calm as stone. The leader's hand shook. His mask couldn't hide it anymore. And for the first time that night, the power in the room began to shift. The millionaire could barely breathe. His chest heaved as he stared at the maid standing in front of them all. Laura, quiet, soft-spoken Laura, was facing down a loaded gun like it was nothing more than a broom handle. The leader's voice cracked with anger. "You think you're smart. You think you can tell me what to do?" Laura didn't flinch. "I think you're wasting time," she said. "Every second you argue with me, the police get closer. You came here for money, take it. That's your only chance to live." A murmur rippled through the guests. Even the robbers exchanged uneasy glances. One of them hissed, "Boss, she's right. The sirens—" "Shut it," the leader barked, his voice shaky. He jabbed the gun harder into Laura's forehead. "Don't test me!" "I'm not testing you," she replied. "I'm warning you." The millionaire's wife whimpered, pulling her children tighter. The youngest buried her face in her mother's dress. Guests covered their mouths, too afraid to even breathe. The leader growled, spinning on his men. "Tie them up, all of them. We'll take what we can and go." The robbers moved quickly. Rough hands yanked the millionaire from his seat and shoved him to his knees. One grabbed the wife's arm, dragging her forward as the children screamed. "Please don't touch them," the wife cried. Laura's voice cut sharp through the air. "Stop!" The single word froze everyone. Even the robbers halted. Her gaze was unblinking, her tone fierce. "You tie the adults if you must, but you don't touch the children. Not one finger." The leader sneered. "Or what?" Her eyes burned with a fire no one had ever seen in her before. "Or you'll regret it." The millionaire blinked, stunned. He'd never heard such authority in her voice. It wasn't a plea. It was a command. The robbers hesitated. One muttered under his breath, "Boss, she's not scared." That was the moment everything shifted. The leader snarled, snapping. "Enough of this!" he lunged, grabbing Laura's arm roughly. "Who are you?" Laura's answer was a whisper, cold and dangerous. The wrong person to threaten. And then she moved. Her elbow slammed into his wrist with brutal precision. The gun flew from his hand, clattering across the floor. Gasps erupted through the hall. Before anyone could react, she twisted his arm behind his back, forcing him down to his knees with a cry of pain. "Get her!" another robber shouted, raising his weapon. But Laura was already in motion. She kicked the fallen gun across the marble floor, ducked low, and surged forward. In a blur, she grabbed the second robber's wrist, twisting sharply until his pistol slipped free. With a sharp strike of her palm, she sent him crashing to the floor. The millionaire's eyes widened in disbelief. She wasn't just fighting, she was trained. Every move was fast, precise, controlled. The third robber froze, his gun shaking in his hand. Laura snatched up the weapon from the floor and pointed it straight at him. Her stance was steady, professional. "Drop it," she ordered. His mask hid his face, but his trembling hands betrayed him. "I said drop it!" The gun slipped from his grip, clattering to the floor. And then there was silence. Every guest, every child, every terrified soul in that room stared at the maid who was no longer just a maid. She stood tall, chest heaving, the weapon steady in her hands. At her feet, the leader groaned in pain, pinned to the carpet. Laura pressed the barrel of the gun against the back of his head. Her voice was low and firm. "You thought this house was easy prey, but you forgot sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous." The millionaire's heart thundered. He whispered to himself, "Who is she?" Because Laura was the only reason they were all still alive. The room stayed frozen. Guests clutched one another, too stunned to speak. The millionaire's wife held her children close, her lips trembling with whispered prayers. All eyes stayed locked on Laura. She stood in the center of the hall, calm as stone. One robber groaned on the ground beneath her grip. The other lay unconscious, and the last knelt trembling with his empty hands raised. The silence broke with faint sirens in the distance. "Boss? Cops?" one of the subdued men muttered, panic rising in his voice. Laura's tone snapped like a whip. "On your knees! Hands behind your heads! Now!" And for the first time that night, the robbers obeyed. The millionaire still couldn't believe his eyes. His chest heaved as he stared at her. This was Laura, the woman who polished floors, carried trays, and never raised her voice. Yet, here she was, steady as a soldier, holding 3 armed men under control. Moments later, the mansion doors burst open. Officers stormed in, weapons drawn, boots pounding against the marble. Guests screamed again until the chief officer shouted, "Police, stay down!" The officers swept the room, their guns trained on the masked intruders. But what stopped them cold was the sight at the center of the hall. The maid, holding a pistol with steady hands. The chief officer's eyes widened. Who restrained them? The millionaire swallowed hard, his voice shaky. She did. Gasps rippled through the guests. Some covered their mouths. Others whispered in disbelief. The officers quickly cuffed the robbers, dragging them to their feet. Weapons were collected from the floor, the hall filled with the sounds of heavy boots, radios crackling, and the sobs of shaken guests. Through it all, Laura stood steady, her chest rising slowly, as if she hadn't just saved a room full of people. Finally, she lowered the gun, exhaling for the first time since it began. The chief officer approached her. Name? Her eyes stayed calm. Laura? The millionaire stepped forward, still trembling. His knees felt weak beneath him, but he had to speak. Laura, his voice cracked. Who are you? She met his gaze, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke softly, but every word carried weight. Once I was in the military, years of training, years of discipline, then I walked away. I wanted peace. I wanted quiet work. But some habits don't leave you. The millionaire blinked, struggling to process it. You saved us. You saved my children. His voice broke as he clutched his wife's hand. I'll never forget this. Laura shook her head gently. Don't thank me. Just remember, courage doesn't come from money. It comes from refusing to let fear win. The smallest child tugged at her apron. You weren't scared, the little one whispered. Laura knelt, brushing a hand over the child's hair. Her voice softened. I was scared, but I didn't let it control me. That's the difference. The millionaire's wife pressed a hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. Guests stared at Laura as if seeing her for the first time, because she was no longer invisible. She was the reason they were alive. And as the police led the robbers away, the story began to spread. How a maid, calm in the face of death, did what no one else dared. That night, Laura wasn't just a maid anymore. She was the hero no one saw coming. And if this story touched you, don't just scroll away. Hit the like button to show support, subscribe so you never miss more powerful stories, and let us know where in the world you are watching from. We love hearing from all of you. Thank you for watching.